Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm starting my next queen for my Drag Race TBR. I'm slowly getting there, guys. We're nearly the end of season 1, where we'll be down to our finalists, and then we'll be having to do maybe our all-stars cast to see who is top queen. But this time I picked out Shea Coulee, Sexy Queen, Read a Steamy Book. And so for that I picked When You Were Mine by the Bennett series by Kennedy Ryan. I've read a few Kennedy Ryan, and as I think I've mentioned before, she's a bit hit and miss for me. Sometimes I really enjoy them, sometimes I don't really enjoy them. And unfortunately this one was such a disappointment to me. So when you sort of start into this, you know from the beginning that the plot is about a man's best friend who is planning on getting married, and the fiance is going to be the sort of love interest for this main man. So I was starting to think, oh no, like how is this going to work without it sounding horrible and it's going to be all cheaty. So it's quite a tall order really to try and write a book where there's going to be some sort of cheating or breaking off of an engagement without it feeling a bit icky or a bit contrived, and they didn't manage it with this. I had absolutely no sympathy for our main character at all, and I really didn't like the direction that it went in. I really didn't like as well that they kind of made out this other man to be to blame. They started as soon as they'd had this relationship. She obviously had this relationship with him that was going well, and then all of a sudden all these things show up when another man's around that sort of push him to be not so nice. And so I think trying to sort of garner sympathy for the girl and the new man, and I really hate that. I really hate that. Why does there have to be something wrong? It just felt very childish to me. This didn't wrap up properly or very well at all really, because there are more in this series, but I'm just not prepared to carry on with this. I just really didn't enjoy it, and I didn't enjoy the way it went, and so I gave this one 2 stars. So not a great start for Shea Coulee. So for the next one, the challenge was Dance, a Bendy book. So I coincided that with the Black Author Readathon that I was doing, and so I picked up Pretending He's Mine by Mia Sosa. This is, I believe, the 2nd book in this series. The first one followed Carter, who was a famous actor, and he met a personal trainer called Tori, and that was about their relationship, and I really enjoyed that book. So I sort of went into this hoping that this would be just as enjoyable. So this one follows Carter's sister and Carter's agent. So I really liked that we were going to be sort of dipping back into this same place and getting to know some of the side characters from the first book. In this, our 2 main characters, Julia and Ashley, are forced together after Ashley moves in with him when she can't stay in her current rented accommodation. He decides that he will let her stay even though he has this sort of attraction to her, which he thinks he can't move on because of Carter being his best friend and it feeling wrong. And she is an air hostess and so isn't around too much anyway, so he doesn't think it will be too much of a problem. However, Ashley has other ideas and is really smitten by him and really wants to see where this can go. It transpires that they end up having to fake date for a family function with all of Ashley's family, and so they go and stay at the family house for a long weekend for sort of a catch-up reunion for the family. And to help Ashley out, Julian agrees to do a fake date with her to get her family off her back, and as you can imagine, it backfires and all sorts of hilarity ensues, and there's lots of romance, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. It was a really nice continuation of this series, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So that looks better for Shea Coulee. Next up, category is Platinum and Gold, a book with gold on the cover. And luckily I was buddy reading a book with Tracy that fit the bill, and I picked up Law by Alexandra Bracken. You can see this has got gold foiling on the front, so it works for this prompt. This is a fantasy story, and I was a bit nervous because sometimes going into fantasy, I should explain, at the moment I haven't got time often to sit down for large chunks of time to read. I'm catching it in snippets. I've got homeschooling, I've got a puppy who is scrabbling at the door, hold on, and I've also got sort of, you know, trying to keep a house going, etc. going on at the moment. So I'm having to read in snippets, and I find with fantasy I need to sit down for like a good hour and really like get stuck into the story. However, I persevered with this one and it really did pay off. Basically, this one is set in New York, and you have the old gods who were banished from Olympus. They were forced to stay on Earth, and you have these families that worship them. Every 7 years there's a tournament, and if somebody kills one of these gods, then they take on their power. So there's become this sort of battle almost every 7 years to try and kill the old gods in order to gain their power, and one person gains their power and then they sort of take over the family, I believe. Law is a member of one of the families, and she is now like the last one standing in her family, and she's been on the run and in hiding and not wanting to participate in this for quite a number of years. So what we're following in this is her story as the next tournament starts. We find out what's been going on with her, we find out a little bit about her, and she is thrown back into this tournament unwittingly and not really wanting to be, but feeling like she has to get involved when a desperate bleeding god turns up on her doorstep. For this, I wanted a little more from the ending. However, I found the book captivating and adventurous and really exciting, and I really did enjoy it. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And sort of super bonus really for this is that it is a standalone, which I really liked. Okay, so then I picked my judge, and that was RuPaul, Don't Fuck It Up. A book by an author you love. This one I was anticipating to be 5 stars. It's called Black Dog Summer by Miranda Sherry. I read Bone Meal for Roses by this author and was just blown away and just fell in love. And I really ended up enjoying this book too. Again, like Bone Meal for Roses, the writing style in this, the imagery, the sort of dreamlike way it's written, I just absolutely adored. It really works for me, and yeah, I just felt the writing was just gorgeous. I really felt it enveloped me and really pulled me into the story. I really liked the fact that this was set in South Africa, like the first book, Bone Meal for Roses, or the first book I've read, because I think this one came first. I just really love a different setting. South Africa is not somewhere I know much about, so I really enjoyed learning about that. This one was reminiscent to the sort of idea of Lovely Bones, if you've ever read that, by I think it's Alice Sebold, where you have a dead protagonist who is the narrator of our story. And in this instance, it's Sally. She is the mother to Gigi, and she has been murdered on sort of like a rehabilitation to animals, ranchy type facility that she's living on with a lot of friends. You know, there's a lot of meditation and yoga and living off the grid, and I don't think Gigi has ever been sent to a proper school. She's sort of learnt from the people that live there, and you know that Sally and Gigi have moved there because there's been this rift between her and her sister, but you don't really know why. And at the start of this story, it's not a spoiler to say, she's been murdered and Gigi has been placed with the family, and she's not very responsive. She's in shock, and there's obviously a lot going on with the mother and father, and Bryony, the young girl, doesn't really know why. And we're following, as I say, Sally, the mother. She knows she's dead, but she doesn't understand why she's still here, and she can see these threads leading to each of the family members, and she follows those threads and follows them in their journey, and that's how we sort of piece together the story, and we flow through it in sort of multiple points of view, but it doesn't feel like jarring. It doesn't feel like you're skipping between different people. It feels really seamless, and I just thought it was really incredibly done. I gave this one 4 stars in the end. If I was a rounder upper, it would be like 4.75. It was really close to 5 stars, but didn't quite tip me over the edge. There were some tears in there for sure, but it didn't quite get there for me for some reason. I don't know, maybe I'm just being really harsh this year with 5 stars. I thought the characters, although I struggle often if there's not a character that I can really like, but in this instance, it didn't seem to matter because they were fully realised. They had their flaws, they had their redeeming features. They felt like real people that you could meet, and I really loved that. I really loved that they just felt real. So this one was a 4 stars. So after those 4 books, I had 2 4 stars, which is 8, a 2 star, which is 10, and a 3 star, which is 13. And I think I've probably told you that Pretending He's Mine was 4 star, but it was 3 star. So I've just checked, sorry if I said that wrong. So anyway, it was 13. So I knew that I was going to have to lip sync, and I kind of knew that no matter what, we're probably not going to get through, but I still wanted to do the lip sync nonetheless. So after picking out my lip sync, it was Woman Up by Megan Trainor, a book with a female main character. And I just picked up some new graphic novels. My daughter's been really into reading graphic novels. I want to encourage her to continue reading to herself, however that may be, whether it's comics, graphic novels, magazines. I just want to encourage that joy and that interest in stories and reading. And so I picked up some more sort of middle grade style graphic novels that I wanted to try. And this one just piqued my interest. It's The Riverdale Diaries, Hello Betty by Sarah Kuhn and Jay Bone. I loved the idea of this. I really enjoy the Riverdale sort of universe. I loved the colour palette and the sort of look of this one. And I just thought, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. I'll read it first, check that it's suitable or something I think she'll enjoy, and then she can read it afterwards. And I was really pleasantly surprised by this one. It's a really sweet contemporary middle grade. Betty and Val are best friends and they're just about to start at middle school. They've spent their whole life as youngsters playing this imaginary game in the garden where there's monsters and dragons, and they're knights, and they are fighting, and it's just a lovely game that they've always played together. As middle school starts though, Val wants to try new things. She wants to try out for music, and Betty feels like she's being left behind because the plans that they had haven't come into fruition, and she feels out of control. She hasn't been able to do the special elective she wanted, which was library, and so she's ended up in the drama department. We follow her learning about herself, learning how to stand on her own without her best friend, and learning how to sustain a friendship when your friendship interests differ. They've always had the same interests, they've always been together, and now they're being tested because they want to have different interests, and yet they still want to be friends. And I think it's really interesting. They're growing apart in their interests, but it's finding a way to make room for each other's passions. So this is definitely one that I will be getting Matilda to read, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So that ended up with 16 for Shea Coulee. So unfortunately, Shea Coulee, sachet away. So I will be moving on to my next drag queen, and I'll let you know how I get on with that. So that's it for me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, BookTube.